Senator Rubio, welcome. It's good to talk to you.
It's good talking to you, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, the handshake yesterday with Raul Castro, it made me queasy to see him bend over, act like it was such an affectionate kind of confrontation. I could have handled it just an obligatory handshake, but I want your reaction. You're Cuban American. Yeah. You had family members who escaped that regime. How did it strike you?
Well, it was, look, watching it on TV struck me as a negative thing. I mean, it was ironic. You're at this funeral for a figure that's identified with freedom and opportunity for his people, and actually, when he was given power, fought to unify a country behind democratic principles and so forth. And then you're shaking the hands of a brutal dictator and a regime that continues to systematically deny the people of Cuba the very rights that Mandela's whole life was dedicated to. So the irony of it was extraordinary. But my bigger problem is not simply a handshake. I think my bigger problem is a pattern of, I think, a fundamental misunderstanding on the part of this administration of what U.S. policy should be with regards to furthering the aim of a free and democratic Cuba, which is the ultimate goal that I have with regards to U.S. policy towards Cuba, is to give the people of Cuba the opportunity to live the way almost everyone else in the Western Hemisphere does, free.
Well, I think that certainly would sum up a big problem with the Obama administration, not understanding who our friends are and who our real enemies are. Because we just have a couple of minutes, I've got to ask you about this budget situation. Yesterday, Paul Ryan, Patty Murray announced that there's a tentative agreement. It sounds like there's some strong support among the House leadership. Your reaction to the budget deal? Well,
look, my reaction is this. This country has a very fundamental problem where a growing number of Americans do not feel like they're getting a chance to get ahead. And even the people who haven't gotten ahead and are living the American dream are worried that their children will not get that chance. We need to respond to that. We need a government that creates less debt. We need an economy that's creating more stable middle-class jobs. And there are government policies that would further that. This budget does not do that. It has no long-term plan in place to deal with a very serious debt problem that threatens our future. And that's my problem. It's not just this budget. It's this lack of long-term thinking around here. There are no long-term solutions apparently possible in Washington, and we are running out of time. So that's why I'm just that's why I've become opposed to the deal they've come up with.
If there's not this deal, what deal is there, if there is one?
Well, first of all, look, I don't think the sequester was the best way to reduce spending, but it's certainly a lot better than continuing to let the debt grow or raise taxes. And that was part of a budget agreement that was reached 2 years ago. We're basically now walking away from that as a result of this. So I think we could have created more flexibility for the military to spend the money that it has. I think we could have looked for ways to perhaps replace the sequester on the military with some other cuts somewhere else, because I think national security is important. But I think to walk away from the already agreed-upon reductions in spending that which were so difficult to achieve, I think opens the floodgates that threaten us to put us right back into these spending habits, and really we're going to continue to have a government that spends more money than it takes in.
Do you think there will be, let's assume that next year there's going to be a turnover in the Senate that would result in the Republicans taking control. Will the Republicans reverse the Harry Reid-initiated nuclear option, or will they say, look, you guys made the rules, we'll now happily live with it, and we'll put through whatever we want to with minorities?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I was against that change because I do believe at the end of the day that irrespective of which party's in power, there is a constitutional role for the Senate to play in advising and in giving consent to presidential nominations, particularly lifelong appointments to the bench. And so I still think that is valid and something we should stand for irrespective of who's in charge. I can't answer to you where my colleagues are. I think it's something we'd have to think about carefully. And I think that's why the Democrats made a terrible, terrible mistake. Because there will be a Republican president, there will be a Republican majority in the future, and their voice with regards to these nominees is going to be significantly diminished. As it stands now, with simple majorities, you can appoint people to cabinet positions of great importance, but even worse, you can appoint people to lifelong jobs on the bench.